All right, y'all. So this number one wants me to graph the equation by plotting points. So let me write this problem down. I got an 8y plus 4x equals 8. So whether you solve this one on the calculator or by hand, I would definitely solve this one for the y. So I'm going to solve for the y on this one, okay? So to solve for the y, we need to get the 8y by itself first. So we come in and subtract 4x from both sides. So that'll give me my 8y. So 8 into negative 4x will not add together. They're not like terms. So I'm just going to write it in the order they got it. I'm going to make that an 8 minus 4x. Now you could have negative 4x plus 8 at that point, and that's fine. So now I got the 8y by itself. I'm going to divide all three of these by 8. So I can make that a 1y. So notice these 8's cancel, give me a 1y. Those 8's cancel, give me a 1. And then minus. So what we need to do is reduce the 4 over 8. And let's see, 4 over 8 will reduce to a 1/2. And then my x. So at this point, you can put this into your calculator. I'm just going to do this by hand real quick. Two numbers I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick 0. And then since there's a 2 on the bottom of this fraction, my second x, I'm going to pick a 2. So when you put a 0 in, 1/2 times 0 is 0. 1 minus 0 gives you a y value of 1. Now when you put a 2 in, the reason I use 2 is because I can cancel them 2's out. And this basically becomes a 1 minus a 1, since that was what was on top of that fraction, which gives me a y value of 0. So now I'm going to go plot that. Right, so my chat said 0. That was correct. So I got my points. I'm going to go to Math Lab to graph this. So click in large graph. That's going to be a line. So I'm going to use the straight line tool. And then I would do 0, 1. So at 0, I would go up 1. Take that. Second point was 2, 0. So going right 2. Stop at 0. So once you got your line yellow, that means it's ready to save. And then you would be able to go to your next question. So our number 2 now has graphed this one. So someone said, how would I use that one in the calculator? So let me show you. Let me go to my calculator screen. So in the calculator, you would still have to solve it for the y. But on my calculator, I can get all my points. I can go to y equals. And then I can plot my 1 minus 1/2 x, which would be 1 divided by 2. And then get your x. Once you got that in your y1, I'm going to go all the way left. Because mine still thinks I'm shading. So let me get my shading turned off. So I need to take that back to just a regular line. All right, and then hit OK on that. All right, now this should graph without the shading, and there you go. And let's see, that should look like my number one I did in Math Lab. So then you'd be ready to move on to that second problem. Now this one is y equals x squared plus 5. If you're putting that on the calculator, it's already solved for y. So you could go right into that one and plot it, okay? Now by hand, since it's already solved for y, I need to get 3 points on this one. So let me draw what tool. So number one, in Math Lab, you had to use the line tool. Since this is the x squared in Math Lab, we have to use that quadratic tool. Y'all, on every one of these quadratic graphs with the x squared, the 3 points you want are -1, 0, and 1. And remember, the middle point on this one is the first one I got to graph when I get into my Math Lab. So plot that point in the middle first when we get to that. All right, so put a -1 in for that x. -1 squared is 1. 1 plus 5 gives me 6. And then, yeah, my second point, if I put a 0 in there, 0 squared is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. Now remember, since this is a parabola, you need to start seeing some symmetry on this. So when we put a 1 in here, 1 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. So you got to see the symmetry down here when you're doing these x squared graphs, okay? So now I got 3 points. I'm going to go to Math Lab and plot this. All right, so click the enlarge graph. X squared graph, I'm going to grab this U-shaped parabola, 3-point quadratic tool. The middle point has to be the first one, so that was 0, 5. So starting at 0, I'm going to go up to 5, hit enter. Then I'm going to do the left side and the right side. So on the left side, I had -1, 6. So go to -1 and up 6. And then my last point was 1, 6. So I go to the right one and up 6. Once you've got it plotted, it turns yellow like that. So then you can save it. Now, if you're wondering about the calculator, since that one was already solved, on the calculator, let me clear that side. On the calculator, I go to my y equals. I'm going to clear out that top. And we just put in the x squared plus 5. So I'm going to push my x. I'm going to square it with the x squared button. And then plus 5. So let me show you. First, I'm going to hit second graph to go to my table. Now notice mine starts at 0, but I'm going to arrow up. And you can see now I got my -1, 0, 1, the 3 points I need. And there's my 6, 5, and 6 on those y values. So we can verify that we were right. And then when we hit graph, we get to our parabola. So let's see, that should look just like my Math Lab. There you go. All right, y'all, so then we go next. So number 3 has me graphing y equals absolute value of x minus 3. All right, so we got the absolute value of x minus 3. Now in MATLAB, absolute value is a V-shaped graph with 2 points on it. We need our bottom point, and then once we plot a point on either side, it'll draw the entire graph for us. So y'all, the first point I need over here in my x's, my first x is the number that makes this expression equal 0. So our first x is whatever number that we can put in for the x and make this equal 0, and that would be that 3. Right? If x is 3, 3 minus 3 is 0, absolute value of 0 is 0. And then I'm just going to pick a point on either side of 3, so I'm going to try 4. But y'all, the second point don't matter, but the first point definitely has to be what makes it equal 0 in here, okay? If you don't get that point, you won't get that V shape. So if I put a 4 in here, 4 minus 3 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is 1. Now, the point that made it equal 0 inside those brackets is the point we're going to plot first. So 3, 0 will be my first point, then I'll do 4, 1. So going to the MATLAB, I'm going to click to enlarge. So I'm going to get to V. Notice the V says absolute value tool. Click that. My first point was 3, 0. So let's go right to 3, 0 and click it. Then the second point I chose was 4, 1. So if I go right to 4 and up to 1, see, it's drawing both sides for me. So the graph is yellow now, so I can save it and go on. On the calculator. Let me clear what's on here. So go to y equals, clear that. Absolute value. To get absolute value, you need to hit the blue second key, the 0. And if you notice right above the 0, it says catalog. I want the catalog, and the first thing in the catalog is ABS, which is absolute value. So hit enter on that. And it'll bring your lines up, okay? So let me see what chat was saying. Someone's asking, what if the x was squared or cubed in absolute value form? Which shape would it take? It's still going to be a V because absolute value is like parentheses. So you would work everything inside of it and get one number first. And then once you took the absolute value, it's going to give you positive numbers on that. So it still will make that V shape. It's just more work inside on that. All right, y'all. So let me see what was my problem. X minus 3. So let me put an X minus 3 in there. And then arrow out of that. So now I've got X, absolute value X minus 3. So I'm going to show you the table again. So second graph. So if you're looking at the table, when you pick your points, you want the one down here that has a Y value of 0. So that'd be the X at 3, 0. And then pick any other point on there you want. So let's see what that graph, remember my graph shifted to the right a little bit, and there you go. Y'all ain't gonna lie, the first 4 or 5 of this is nothing but graphing, okay? So you want to make sure that these graphs in MATLAB are matching what y'all doing on the calculator. All right, y'all, let's see. Question number 4. Is that a function? So y'all can answer that. A, B, C, or D?
Yes. Because it only responds to, or corresponds to one element in the one element in the domain only responds to one range.
So you're going with, looks like
I think
C?
it's
Perfect.
yeah.
They kind of mess you up though, because we remember you was right, because we're worried about the domain having one range, or this one's going backwards with the range first and then the domain. So good job. All right, y'all, looks like on number 5, let me write that problem down. They're giving me f of x equals 4x squared minus 3x. They want me to find f of 0, f of a -1, and then f of 2. So we'll go find our 3 values and then come put them in. All right, so I'll do f of 0 first. Well, f of 0 just wants me to put zeros in for the x's on this expression. So that'll be 4 times 0 squared minus 3 times 0. So let's see what we got up here. Yeah, I'm just going to plug them in. So 0 squared is 0 times 4 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. And I'll tell you a little trick. If there's an x in every one of the terms of these expressions and you're putting a 0 in, it's always going to equal 0 for that, okay? All right, f of -1 will be 4 times -1 squared minus 3 times -1. So -1 squared is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. So this side will give me 4. -1 times 3 is -3, but you're subtracting a -3. That's going to be like you're adding. And then 4 plus 3 will give me 7. And then I put in my, what was my last one? F of 2. That'll equal 4 times 2 squared minus 3 times 2. So 2 squared is 4. 4 times 4 will give you 16. This time this end will be minus because you only got the one negative. And then 3 times 2 is 6. And then I would do 16 times 6 and get 10. So we would plug in what is 0, 7, and 10. So let's see, right here I said 0. Then we said 7. And then 10. All right, so plug them in and roll to the next one. All right, on number 6, let's see what we got. 6 is f of x equals 6 minus the absolute value of x. Now they're giving us the numbers to start with. They're giving me -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. All righty. Everything can be done on the calculator for this one. So I'm going to do this both ways. So first I'll do this by hand, and then I'll show you the calculator way. That's absolute value. So when we plot it, it's going to be the absolute value tool. And the first point we plot has to be that middle point, okay? So let's see what we get. Put a -2 in here. Absolute value of -2 is 2. 6 minus 2 makes that a 4. If I put a -1 in here, absolute value of -1 is 1. 6 minus 1 is 5. If I put a 0 in, absolute value of 0 is 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. And then you'll start seeing some symmetry in. Yeah, good job on that. And then how about when I put a 1 in there, I get what? 6 minus absolute value of 1, which is 1. So 6 minus 1 is 5. So you're starting to see the symmetry. On both sides of the 6, I got a 5, which means when I put a 2 in here, 6 minus absolute value of 2 would be 4. Good job. All right, so calculator, watch this. On the calculator, let me go to y equals and clear that. So here I would put my 6 minus absolute value of x. So remember, absolute value, you would hit second and the 0, brings up the catalog, hit enter because ABS is highlighted, put an X inside them brackets for absolute value pose. Now, let's go to the table. Second graph. They started with -2, which is pretty much where we're at. And look at their y values. 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. Exactly the same. So if we want to look at a graph before we go to Math Lab, sort of like an upside down absolute value. So the first point was 0, 6. So let me click this. Absolute value. First point was 0, 6. My second point, I'm just going to do 1, 5. So that would be right 1 and up 5. So y'all, that looks like our graph. So we would save that. Now notice over here, we would have to put our answers. We had a 4, 5, 6, 5, whoops. And click down. 5 and then my 4. All right, so once you did that little table, plotted your graph, you're ready for next. All right, 7 has f of x equals -x squared plus 1. Now notice, once again, they're giving me a table, x and y. So they're giving me -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So remember, x squared, this is going to be my U-shaped parabola graph, okay? So let's go figure out these numbers and then we'll come plot this. All right, so this one will be the 3-point quadratic tool. All right, so on this problem, I'm going to do the negative ones for sure. F of -2, so they got that negative there. Then you're going to put your -2 in and square it plus 1. Okay. So when they got a negative in front of that x squared and you put a negative number in, you basically want to have 2 negatives in a row. But y'all watch this. Exponent happens first. So that outside negative we bring down. Then we square that -2. So -2 times -2 is a 4. And then we got our plus 1. So that negative is just going to keep following you down on this one. So now you got -4 plus 1, which is -3. Now remember, since this is a parabola, eventually we'll see some repetition on this. So f of -1 will equal -1 squared plus 1. So bring that negative on the outside down. exponent, -1 times -1 is 1. And then at the end is a +1. -1 plus 1 is 0. All right, f of 0 would be negative times 0 squared plus 1. Well, 0 squared is 0 times that negative is 0. So that's going to give you 0 plus 1, which is 1. All right, y'all, we should start seeing our symmetry. So let's do f of 1. That'll be a negative times 1 squared plus 1. So 1 squared is 1. So bring down that negative on the outside. That's going to give me a 1. And look at that. -1 plus 1 is 0. So we're starting to see our symmetry. So let's see when we put that 2 in there. Hold on, let me see something here. All right, what am I doing? F of 2. Let's see what my chat's saying. Okay. All right, so that'd be negative times 2 squared plus 1. So 2 squared is 4, so that's -4 plus 1, which gives me my -3. All right, so let's go graph this. Remember, since that's a parabola, the first point I'm going to plot is that 0, 1. All right, so it's going to make you put your numbers over here first. So I had -3, 0, 1, 0. Oh, come on, click. And -3. I'm going to plot my graph. I'll start with 0, 1 with the parabola. Oh, that's tiny. So 0, 1 looks like it's right there. Then I'm going to do 1, 0, which would be right there. And then I'm going to do that -1, 0, which will be right there. Got those 3 points and save that. All right, this is on y'all. Is that a function? All right, let me look at the chat. So I get a no, that is correct. It is definitely not a function because it would fail the vertical line test, okay? If you put a vertical line on that, it'd hit it more than once. So that would be not a function. Good job. All righty, this one's on the review, but I took it off my test because it was so many parts. So we'll work it anyway because it's on your review. So first of all, they want to know f of 3. So f of 3, we go over on the x-axis where the 3 is and go straight up until we hit that graph. So let me see what my chat's saying. So I'm getting a 2 on that, perfect. But if you go over the 3 on the x and up on the line, you hit it at a y value of 2. Good job. So I would put my 2 in there. Then it says, what's the domain? So the domain is all the x values. But y'all, you got arrows on this graph. It's going as far as it can left. It's going as far as it can right. When your domain does that, we say that it is, let's see if y'all are right, all real numbers. Good job. So I'm going to come down here and put E for all real numbers. All right, then it says, for what x values does f of x equals 2? So they're giving me a y value of 2 on this one, and I need to see what x values make that happen. So I would go up here to 2 on the y-axis. So let's see if y'all are right. And go right, and I hit the line at the first x value. Looks like a 3. Good job. And if I continue over on the other side, looks like I got a definite x value of 7. So good job. 3 and 7 are perfect. So you would come down here and put your 3, comma 7. And then the last part of that says, hey, what's the range? So remember, the range is the y values. So it's not all real numbers because there's nothing down here in these negative y values. So did y'all get this one right? Greater than or equal to 0 is perfect. Because remember, the bottom value is 0, and it equals that, and then it goes upward. So that'll be greater than. So y'all would actually pick D on that one. And good job, Jordan, because that is definitely greater than 0. All right, this says find a domain. So what do I got here? G of x equals 9 divided by 9 minus 7x. All right, y'all. So since that is a domain problem, all I'm worried about is the bottom of that fraction cannot equal 0. So in that case, I would set 9 minus 7x equal to 0 so I can find that value. So y'all right on that one. So I'm getting C on that one. So I'm about to check and see if that's right. So to solve this, I would subtract 9. I get negative 7x is equal to a negative 9. Divide both sides by the negative 7. So x is equal to 9/7, which means when I do my domain, it's going to be x such that x is real and x cannot equal 9/7. So since that's what we got when we solved, that's the number you're going to kick out of that domain. So let me see if y'all were right on C for that. Yeah, perfect, right? Got exactly what we said. X is real and it cannot equal 9/7. They try to mess you up with those greater than and equal stuff, so don't be fooled. Hey, that's a good way to do it, right? Take that test as many times as you got to until you get good on it. Y'all hang on 1 second. I gotta go let this dog out. All righty, I'm back. All right, so let's see. Number 11, what they got? F of x equals negative 20x plus 6. G of x equals x squared plus 10. They want us to find f of 6, looks like divided by g of 6. All right, so really on this one, this is another one where you just want to plug in and see what you get. So on top, you got your f function, put a 6 in for the x. That'll be negative 20 times 6 plus 6. On the bottom of g of 6, so we put a 6 in for the x there. And we just figure out what we got. So negative 20 times 6 is a negative 120. Plus that 6. On the bottom, 6 squared is what? 36 plus 10. So let's see what we get. On top, we're going to get a negative 114 over 46. So I will say that one will definitely reduce because they're both even numbers. So it's going to stay negative. I'm going to take the 2's out of this. 46 divided by 2 leaves me 23 on the bottom. Let's see, what's that? 114 divided by 2 would leave me a 57 on the top. So that one should reduce to a negative 57 over 23. But y'all, let me show you a trick on that calculator. So let me quit that screen right there and then clear. So on here, I can reduce it. So remember, I had a negative 114 divided by 46. So now, if I hit enter, it'll give me a decimal. If you come to the left side and hit the math button, number 1 means it's going to turn your answer into a fraction. That's what that arrow means. So you just hit enter twice, and it will give us our negative 57 over 23. So let the calculator reduce fractions if you don't like doing that, okay? All right, so I would just do what, a negative, and then do my fraction. And we had what, 57 on top. And then our 23 on the bottom. All right, then we hit next and go to the next one. All right, this one they're giving us f of x is a negative 4x plus 3. G of x is x squared minus 5. They want us to find g minus f of x. So some of these, I'll probably just work these instead of putting them all into the math lab. But I'm going to definitely show you how to work all these. So g minus f, and on subtraction, 100% of the time, I start these out in parentheses. So I'm going to have my g equation minus my f equation. G was x squared minus 5. F was a negative 4x plus 3. Remember, this is subtraction, so I will distribute that negative times both of these. So the first one comes down as an x squared minus 5. Then you're subtracting a negative 4x, which means you're adding 4x. And then that negative times that positive 3 makes that a negative 3. All right, so all you can do now is add like terms. So x squared, I'm just going to put mine in descending order. So next I'm going to put the what, plus 4x. And then that negative 5 and negative 3 gave us a negative 8. So that's what we would put in MathLab for that answer. All right, so then we would hit next. So subtraction again, but they're giving me numbers on this one. They're saying, hey, f of x is going to equal x squared minus 2. G of x is going to equal, what's that? 18 minus x. They want us to find f minus g of 4. All right, so that's going to equal my f minus my g. So let me go back to my screen. So f minus g of 4 is going to equal my f equation minus my g equation. Now remember, when I put these equations in, I'm going to put that 4 in for all these x's. So this one will give me 4 squared minus 2. This one will give me 18 minus that 4. All right, so my first step, since they gave me numbers, my first step is to work inside of each parentheses. So 4 squared will give me 16 minus 2. And then this one, all you got is 18 minus 4. So that's going to leave 14 in that one. So here we go. 16 minus 2 is 14 minus this 14. And then I get what? 14 minus 14 is 0. So you punch 0 in for 13 and then move on. All right, 13, let's see what they're giving us. 14, they're giving me f of x equals 1 over x minus 3. G of x equals 9x to the third. They want the domain of each operation, adding, subtracting, and multiplying. They didn't do division on this one, okay? So if we were to add these, f plus g of x, you would have your f, which is 1 over x minus 3, plus your g, which is 9x to the third. Now, we are worried about the domain on this one because that one has a fraction. So remember what we would do when we got a fraction, we'd take that x minus 3, set it equal to 0, and solve it. So y'all solving that, I would add 3 to both sides, and it's giving me 3. So that means x cannot equal 3 for adding. If you're subtracting, it's the same thing, right? Your f minus your g, the only thing you're worried about is that fraction. And we already know that the x cannot equal 3 for that one. If you're multiplying, you're going to have 1 over x minus 3 times 9x to the third. Once again, the only thing we're worried about is that fraction. And once again, we know x cannot equal 3. So adding, subtracting, and multiplying usually always have the same answer for the domain. So let's see how MathLab wants that one in. Okay, so we're going to pick A on each of these. And in here, we would just put x not equal to 3. Then we would come down here, pick A for the subtraction. X not equal to 3. And then come down here to the third one for the multiplication and put x not equal to 3. Now, y'all, if you just put 3 there and you don't put that x not equal to 3, you're going to mark those wrong, okay? So you got to put the x not equals. Now, this one is the domain of a division. So I got f of x equals 4x minus 3. G of x equals 3x minus 6. They want me to find the domain of f divided by g. All right, y'all, so here we go. So the domain of f divided by g. F divided by g will equal my f on top, 4x minus 3, divided by my g, which is 3x minus 6. So remember, domain, all I'm worried about again is the bottom of that fraction. So I'm going to set 3x minus 6 equal to 0, solve that, and have the number I need to kick out. Well, you also add 6 to both sides. 3x equals 6, then divide by 3. So it looks like I'm getting what 6 over 3 would be 2. So that's telling me that x cannot equal 2. So let's see what Math Lab wants us to do. Oh, they already give you everything, and all you got to put here is the x cannot equal, what do we say, 2, and then move on. All right, 16. F of x is 6x plus 1. G of x equals x to the third. We're going to find f composed g of a negative 4. All right, so let me go to the screen. So this is like f of g of a negative 4. So we're going to put that negative 4 into that g equation. Once we get that answer, we'll put it into the f equation. So the first thing you got to find is g of negative 4. And y'all, that's just going to equal negative 4 to the third power. So let's see, negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. That's like what, a negative 64. So since g of negative 4 is a negative 64, we now put that negative 64 into our f. So we're going to find f of that negative 64. So take the f equation, 6 times x, which is negative 64, plus 1. All righty, so I'm going to break out a calculator and cheat real quick. So negative 64 times, what am I doing, 6? Woo, negative 384 plus 1, which will give me a negative 383. So those ones aren't bad. You just gotta keep up with the order you're putting these in, okay? All right, so that one would have gave me negative 383. Then I'd hit the next. All right, y'all, let me write this down before I go to my pad. So f of x equals 4 over 1 minus 5x. G of x equals 1 over x. So they want me to find f composed g, g composed f, and then the domains. All right, so you got to do this one on the review, but this is the second one I took off my test. I just thought it had too many parts. All right, so first let me find fog, f of g of x. That means we're going to take the g of x and put into the f of x equations x. So that'll equal 4 divided by 1 minus 5 times our x, which is 1 over x. So y'all, at this point, you can see in the very beginning, let me find where my problem is. In the very beginning, we got a fraction right here. So since that x is in the bottom of that fraction, we know off the bat that that x cannot equal a 0. So now I'm just going to simplify the expression and see what I end up with, because I might have another spot where I got to worry about that domain, okay? So the top's going to stay the same. All I'm going to do at this step is multiply that. So multiply straight across, you get 5 over x. So you get 1 minus 5 over x. Now, to simplify this, we cannot have a fraction inside of a fraction. So what we need to do now is multiply every single part of this expression by that x. So on top, I would multiply 4 times x. On the bottom, I would multiply 1 times x minus the 5 over x multiplied by x. Now, the whole reason we did that is so on that fraction, we can cancel it out. So look what's left. 4 times x is 4x. On bottom, you get an x minus 5. So now they're happy. You don't have a fraction inside of a fraction. We got a numerator and a denominator. But we do have a fraction. And that's going to be the second part that I'm going to be worried about on my domain. Because I know there is a number, minus 5, that'll make that 0. And that would be 5, right? So if x was 5, 5 minus 5 would make me 0. So I now know my domain cannot be 0 and it cannot be 5. So I'm going to now do the g of f of x. And then we'll go back and look at how they want these in there. So g of f would be the g equation, which is 1 divided by x. But the x I'm putting in here is this whole f function, which is 4 over 1 minus 5x. So guess what? You've got this fraction here. So we need to worry about that denominator. So we would set 1 minus 5x equal to 0 and solve that for that x. So minus 1, you get negative 5x equals negative 1. Divide both sides by negative 5. All these positives make all these negatives will make this positive, so that we get a 1/5. So at the moment, we know x cannot equal 1/5. Now, y'all, to simplify this one, I'm going to take the top, which is 1, divide by the bottom, which is 4 over 1 minus 5x. But if y'all remember the rule, we don't like to divide fractions. So we're going to turn this into multiplication and flip the fraction so that we get 1 minus 5x over 4. And guess what, y'all? 1 times this is just going to be 1 minus 5x over 4. So this part, although it's a fraction, I'm not worried about it because it does not have a variable in the denominator. So for the g of f, the only number I'm worried about is the 1/5. All right, so the trick on this is putting all this into this math lab. So y'all, for f of g, I ended up with, I'm going to do the fraction down here. On top, I ended up with a 4x. On bottom, I ended up with x minus 5. On g of f, we ended up with a fraction. On top, we had a 1 minus 5x. Whoops, I didn't like that. Let me go back. I didn't get back inside the box there. 1 minus 5x. And on the bottom of that one was just a 4. So the domain of f of g, we said we had to kick out a 0 and a 5. And that was a positive 5. So let's see, that's 0, negative 5. So look at B, it has my 0 and my 5 kicked out of the domain. So I'm picking that. On the G of F, we said it could not equal 1/5. So let's see. That looks like B, they're kicking out 1/5. So pick B and then move to the next. But y'all remember, I took that one off my test because it was just too many parts, okay? All right, next question. Is this 1-to-1? I'll let y'all answer that one. All right, so let me see. Chat. Whoops. Chat's lighting up, so let me see. So hopefully y'all. Oh, I got one of y'all right, one of y'all wrong. So remember, if it's 1-to-1, it's got to pass the horizontal line test. So if you use to cross that with a horizontal line, notice it would actually hit the graph twice. So that would make that a no. What happened here? So then we just click no, good job, and then move to the next one. All right, so 19 says f of x equals 8 over x plus 1. If it's 1-to-1, find the inverse. Well, y'all, on y'all's number 19 on this review, you might as well just go on and put, yes, it's 1-to-1. Every one of y'all's problems will be 1-to-1 for this problem, which means we're going to find the inverse. So let's go back to our pad. I got crooked while ago when I hit that. All right, so to find the inverse, first thing you do is you're going to replace f of x with a y. So that'll give you y equals 8 over x plus 1. So let me see if y'all are right. Y'all got 8 over x minus 1. So let me see if you're good on that. So switch the x into y so that you get x equals 8 over y plus 1. All right, y'all. So now we're solving that for the y. So the easiest thing is to multiply both sides by that y plus 1 that's in the denominator. Because you want to get rid of this fraction first. And see, if you multiply by y plus 1, you can cancel that side out so that you're left with y plus 1 times x equals 8. All right, remember, we're solving for the y. So since they're multiplying by the x, I would automatically come in and divide that x on both sides. So now this cancels. So now I get y plus 1 equals 8 divided by x. Y'all check this out. In the long run, all I did was switch this x with that y plus 1. I now had the y plus 1 there and the x down there. Well, this is starting to look like your answer, Jordan. So let's see. What I would do next would be subtract 1 from both sides. And I get y equals 8 over x minus 1. And your last step would be technically to write the y as the f inverse of x. The math lab will give you that. All you got to put in is the 8 over x minus 1. So let me see if that was in my chat. I think that's what y'all said. Oh, good job. Makes you happy when you get those right. All right, so then you come in here, put your 8 over x minus 1, and then hit next. All righty, so for 20, I'm probably going to use my matrix on my calculator. Y'all good with that, or let me ask you this. Were y'all able to download them programs I gave y'all in the email? I sent out some programs like Kramer 2, Kramer 3, and all that. Those would actually work these quicker. So I'm going to show you both ways on this one, how I would solve this one using my calculator or my matrix. So let me write what they're giving me. 5x plus 4y is 62. 4x plus 5y equals 64. So I'll do the matrix first, and then I'll show y'all the program. I'll have to put my calculator under the screen for that one because I don't have it on my overhead. So let's go matrix first. So I'm going to share my screen with the calculator. Let me clear some of this stuff out of my way. So the first thing you got to do is enter your matrix with the numbers you got. So you're going to hit second x negative 1 to get the matrix. And the first thing you're going to do is arrow over to edit and hit enter. So my matrix has 2 rows by 3 columns. So you want to do 2 enter and then 3 enter. That's going to give me 6 spots for my numbers. So when you got 2 variables, it's a 2 by 3 matrix. When we got 3 variables, it'll be a 3 by 4. So y'all put in your numbers. I had 5 enter. Then I had 4y, so that would be 4 enter. And then 62. Then it goes down to my next row. I had 4 x's, so that'd be 4 enter. 5 y's, so that'd be 5 enter. And then 64. So hit enter after 64. After all your numbers are showing up, quit the screen by hitting second mode. So we now have our numbers in there. So now we need to go back to second matrix. So second x negative 1. This time arrow right to math. And once you got math highlighted, arrow down until you find me RREF. So RREF is B on mine, so I would hit enter. So that brings the RREF to your screen. So for the 3rd time, you're going to hit second x negative 1 for that matrix. Notice A says it's my 2 by 3 matrix, so I just automatically hit enter when I go to that. Now it will reduce matrix A, so when I hit enter, my answers are the last column, the 6 and the 8. They're in alphabetical order, which means X is 6, Y is 8. Now remember, here's where I get people on this one. When you put this answer in MATLAB, you gotta use these ordered pairs, okay? Oh, and I forgot what I got. I think I said 6 for that one. And then, whoops, having trouble picking over. And then 8 for the second point. So it's got to look like an ordered pair, and look right under here, it says type an ordered pair, okay? Push that in and be ready to move on. Now I'm going to try to share my screen and show you how I would do that one on the calculator that I just did. So my camera's all crooked. All right, so the easy way, if you got my programs, you would hit the program button right in the middle, hit program. It brings up a list of, now y'all won't have all these. Y'all should have the Kramer 2 and 3 and then the quad I sent you. But go to your Kramer 2 because you got 2 variables and hit enter. It brings it on the screen, hit enter again. So it's going to ask me for my numbers, A, B, C for the first row, A, B, C for the second row. So I had 5 X's, so I do 5 enter. 4 Y's would be 4 enter. And then 62 enter. Second row was 4 X's, so 4 enter. 5 Y's, so 5 enter. And then 64. Now what's nice, you don't have to do this 3 times on this one. You hit enter, and bam, it gives you the 6 and the 8. So this one's all programmed for if you have the numbers right, you just punch them in, hit enter, and you get the answers instead of having to go back into it 3 times, okay? All righty, so let me go back to the... So next it looked like it was a system of 3 equations. So definitely a matrix on this one, right? So we got 7x plus y plus z equals -2. 3x, 2y minus 3z equals -17. And then x minus 3y plus 2z equals 10. All right, so definitely matrix on that. All right, so let me clear everything. All right, so since I want to go to matrix, I'm going to go to second, x -1 to pull my matrix up, arrow right to edit, and hit enter. So this time I got 3 variables, so this is going to be a 3 by 4. So you're going to hit 3 enter, 4 enter. So remember, it's always the rows times the columns. All right, then we're going to put in our numbers. I had 7 enter for the x, 1 y, so that'd be 1 enter, 1 z, so that'd be 1 enter, and then -2. So when I hit enter, it's going to the next row. 3 for the x, 2 for the y, -3 for the z, -17 for the answer. Then it's going to click to my last row, which was 1 for the x, -3 for the y, 2 for the z, and then that solution was 10. So enter. So I got my matrix in there. So now I hit second mode to quit. All right, so now this thing's matrix A is what we just put in there. So we got to go back to second, x -1, arrow over to math, and then scroll down for RREF. Hit enter. Go get your matrix, which is second, x -1, and enter. So now we're going to reduce that matrix we just gave it. So we hit enter. Oh, so I must have thrown a number off here. Let me see. Let me go back to my problem, make sure I got my numbers right. So 7, 1, 1, -2, 3, 2, -3, -17, 1, -3, 2, and 10. So that means, let me go to my calculator. I'm going to go back and edit this again because somewhere I put in a bad number. So let me go to edit and hit enter. All right, so let's see. 7, 1, 1, -2 is good. 3, 2, -3, -17 is good. 1, -3, 2, and 10. So let's see. Okay, so I've never seen it give decimals on here before. So I'm just going to verify real quick. Oh, my bad. I put plus Z, that's a negative. I mean, that Y is negative and I put positive. Let me see if that's what y'all are saying. No, what I did, I put the wrong sign on my Y. So let me go back. My first Y, I put 7x plus Y. That was a -1. So I'm going to hit enter until I get to that Y there. I'm going to change that to a -1. All right, so let me clear that row right there. To make that a -1 for that Y. All right, y'all. So I got my -1 fixed. So let me quit the screen. Go to matrix, and I'm going to get that RREF this time. So RREF, matrix A again. So second matrix, enter, enter. Oh, look at that. -1, -1, 4. So when you put that in MATLAB, use a parentheses because that's an ordered triple. So did y'all see what one sign will do to you? When you're writing down these problems, somehow I put a plus Y instead of that -Y, and that threw me off big time. So MATLAB, they give you the blanks and you just put in your answer. But y'all watch this. That's why I love programs. So for this one, there's 3 variables. So I would hit program and use the Kramer 3x. Hit enter and then enter to start it. So the first row was 7, -1, 1, -2. Second row was 3, 2, -3, -17. And then the last row was 1, -3. What's that? A 2 and a 10. So watch this. I better get -1, -1, and a 4. So I love that calculator program better than a matrix because it's quick. Just kind of watch them signs when you're putting in there. So the ones that I would put in smallest to largest were the word problems. When they was giving me like the sum of the 2 small numbers and the sum, or the difference of the largest and the smallest and all that. Those are the ones I would probably put in order because they would ask you, what's the smallest number, what's the middle number, and then the largest. All right, y'all, on this one, I got 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza. So 1 egg, so I made these in columns. My first column will be my eggs, and then I'll do my cupcakes in the second column. Pizza in the third column, and then the milligrams that they have in the fourth. So I got 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza equals 297. Then I got 3 cupcakes, 4 pizza. That gave me 82 milligrams. And then let me move this out of my way here real quick. Then I got 3 eggs, 1 cupcake. That gave you 834. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how I did that. So I wrote it out as they gave me. 1 egg, 1 cupcake, 1 pizza, they said was 297 milligrams. Then they said 3 cupcakes, 4 pizza was 82. So since this one didn't have an egg, I would put a 0 there. And the last one said you had 3 eggs, 1 cupcake equals 834. It didn't have a pizza, so I'd put a 0 there. At that point, go into your matrix. So let's go to our matrix. But y'all, you got to put them zeros. You got to have placeholders for those missing parts, okay? All right, so we'll clear this screen on both. So that's got 3 rows by 4 columns again. So it's going to be a 3 by 4. So I'm going to go over to edit, hit enter. So that's going to be a 3 enter, 4 enter. And then I'm going to punch in all my numbers. So I had 1 egg, so that'd be 1 enter. 1 cupcake, 1 enter. 1 pizza, 1 enter. And that was $2.97. And enter. My second row was 0 eggs. So I'm going to do 0 enter. 3 cupcakes. 4 pizza. And that was worth 82. Then my third row was 3 eggs, 1 cupcake, 0 pizza, and that was $8.34. And then enter on that. All right, so second mode to quit. So let me see what Chad's got going on. Well, Chad got 272, 18, and 7. So let's see if that's right. So I'm going to do second, x negative 1, arrow over to math, down to RREF. Hit enter. Go get my matrix by hitting second, x negative 1, and enter. All right, time of reckoning. Let's see. Oh, look at that. 272, 18, and 7. Good job. And that's one of the trickier ones. So you got that right. You're going to do good on my test, right? All right, so you put that in and hit next. Now, you can do that on that Kramer 3, okay? Just use them zeros on it also. All right, graph the inequality. This is number 23. 3x minus 5y is less than or equal to a negative 10. All right, y'all. So the first thing we got to do to that is solve that for that y. All right, so I'm going to solve that for the y. Once I get that done, I'm going to go plot that and shade it and all that fun stuff. All right, so to solve that for the y, we're going to subtract 3x from both sides. Pretty much just like we did that first problem, except it had equals instead of that less than, okay? So negative 5y will be less than or equal to negative 10 minus 3x. Divide everybody by negative 5. Now, since I divided by negative, remember, we got to reverse the inequality. So reverse the inequality. Since dividing by negative. All right, so you get y is greater than or equal to negative divided by negative makes that a 2. Negative divided by negative makes that a positive 3/5 x. So at that point, you would pick 2 numbers and plot it on the graph. So on that one, I would use 0. 0 times 3/5 is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. My second number would be a 5. And if you put a 5 in here, they cancel. And 2 plus 3 gives you 5 for that x. Now, that's got equals under it. So in MATLAB, you're going to use a solid line greater than. We're going to shade above. All right, so here we go. So we're going to MATLAB. So on this one, I'm gonna click to enlarge. Now notice it's already got the solid line click by default. If you needed a dotted, you would have to come down and click the dotted line. So go get your graph tool. I had 0, 2. So 0, 2 is right there. Click. I had 5, 5. So right 5 and up 5. Click that. Solid line, shaded above. So I need to grab my paint can, drag it to above the line and push. So now I have my line colored, save that, and then move on to the next. Y'all, 24, X is less than 7. Automatically, I'm going to go to the graph. You don't have to plot this stuff on the table. So it's less than, so that would be a dotted line. That's where I'm getting a lot of people. They're not switching them lines to dotted when you don't have an equals under that less than, okay? Strictly less than is a dotted line. So watch this. Go grab your line tool. Go over here to 7 on the x-axis and put a dot. Whoops, my bad. Let me clear that. I'm on the wrong side. I said 7. So go to 7 and put you a dot at 7, 0. Remember, X, when it's only got an X, it's going to be a vertical line. If it's only got a Y, it'll be a horizontal line. So since this is going to be a vertical line, I'm just going to go up 1 and put me another dot. So draw your vertical line less than, so grab your paint can. Less than is to the left side on the x-axis. So shade that to the left, dotted line, save that, and then move on to the last question. So the last one was a system. So I got y greater than or equal to x plus 3, y less than or equal to 3 minus x. So y'all watch this one. Since I got a system, I'm going to go on the calculator and remind y'all how to shade on that. So I'm going to go to my calculator. So let me clear everything. We'll go to y equals, and let me clear this. So since these are already shade solved for the y, I'm just going to put in my two equations. So the first one was x plus 3. So get your x plus 3. Now it is a greater than. So since it's greater than, I'm going to arrow all the way left. Now, older calculators, you would just start hitting enter until you got the greater than triangle. On the new ones, you got to hit enter. I don't care about the line being different colors. I'm going to arrow down to where it says line and arrow right or left until you get a greater than. So let's see. That's the greater than triangle. Come down and say, okay. Now I'm going to arrow down to y2 and come over here and put in that equation, which was 3 minus x. We'll go all the way left and hit enter on that one. So this is going to be a red line and it's less than. So I've already got the less than triangle highlighted. But if not, you would just arrow down here and go through those until you got that. So there's greater than, there's less than. Come down and put okay. Now, the answer will be the double shaded region when I hit graph. So there's 1 and 2. So if you notice the left side, that's double shaded. So we know the answer. And y'all look how MathLab does it. They just put the answer to the double shaded part. So mine was on the left side. So I've got to go with D for that one. And then at that point, I would submit my quiz and be done. So y'all, it's not a bad test. This study guide is 25 questions. The test is only 20. So I took off some of them questions that had more than one part. All right. Test 1 is open, and this test 1 will be due Sunday night. Thursday, when we come in, we're going to start our test 2 material, which starts with 7.1 and 7.2. So they're not too bad. They're pretty small assignments, okay? So y'all, I think I talked a lot longer than I usually do. So let me stop this recording, and I will send out the recording